Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, make sure to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any future videos. In our last episode, we talked about what is JSA, why we need it, and we also looked at the benefits of conducting a job safety analysis. And if you haven't watched that video yet, I would recommend you to go watch it before proceeding further. Because in this episode, we are going to be looking at how to conduct a job safety analysis. We'll be looking at a step-by-step guide, task breakdown, hazard identification, controls. So it's going to be a continuation from where we left off in our last episode. Make sure to watch that one too. Coming up next on the channel, we'll be looking at how to fill a JSA form. Today's episode is going to be more like an introduction to the practical aspect of conducting a job safety analysis. Before we get into it, don't forget to hit that like button if you're enjoying the content so far. Also, let me know in the comments below if you have ever conducted a JSA or if you have ever been a part of a team that has conducted a JSA. I would love to hear your experiences. All right, so without any further ado, let's get started. First thing first, you need to break down the task. You need to identify the task that needs to be accomplished. So here's a simple example. Let us say you work at a manufacturing company and you are working on a production line and your task is to feed materials into a machine. So that's the task. Now, after you've identified the task, you need to break it down into smaller manageable steps. This makes it easier to analyze the task and identify the hazards associated with each step. So for this example, we can break it down into these 3 steps: positioning the material, feeding the material, and securing the material. See, this is way easier to analyze compared to just saying feed material into the machine, because this is quite a vague instruction. So break it down into smaller steps that makes it easier. Now, once you've broken down the task into smaller steps, then you need to identify the equipment and the tools that will be used to carry out the task. So for this example, the tools that are needed are hand tools like a wrench or a screwdriver, precision measuring instruments, maybe a ruler or a caliper, and of course the machine itself that you're working with. So once you've identified the task and the equipment and the tools needed for the task, then you need to look at the workplace layout. You need to think about the work area and the surrounding area. Are there any other things around that might affect the task? So for example, is the material stored safely? Is the machine guarded properly? So you need to analyze all of that. Next step is identifying the hazards. So after you've gone through the task and the tools and the workplace layout, then you need to identify the potential hazards associated with each step. So for the task of feeding material into the machine, some of the common hazards could be the material falling or slipping, which could cause an injury; entanglement with moving parts of the machine, which again could lead to an injury; and improper handling of the material or tools, which could also lead to an injury. So those are some of the common hazards. Of course, depending on the industry and the workplace, there might be additional hazards. The next step is to implement controls. So once you've identified the hazards, then you need to think about the controls that are in place to minimize the risk associated with the hazards. For example, for the hazard of material falling or slipping, we can put in place a control such as using a push or a pull device, or maybe a conveyor belt to feed the material into the machine. This will minimize the risk of the material falling or slipping. For the second hazard, which was entanglement with moving parts, we can put in place a control such as installing machine guarding or using safety barriers to prevent anyone from entering the danger zone of the machine while it is operating. For the third hazard, improper handling of material or tools, we can put in place a control such as providing training to employees on how to handle the material and tools correctly. We can also provide them with the necessary personal protective equipment like gloves or safety glasses to minimize the risk of injury. So those are some of the controls that can be put in place. Now, after you've identified the controls, you need to evaluate the effectiveness of the controls. Are the controls effective in minimizing the risk? And if they are not effective, then you need to come up with additional controls, and you need to keep on doing this until you've effectively controlled all the hazards. All right, so that was a brief overview of how to conduct a job safety analysis. The next step would be to actually do it in the real-world scenario and start analyzing jobs, and start breaking them down, and start identifying the hazards and controls, and come up with a JSA report, which can be filled out in a JSA form. That's what we'll be looking at in our next episode. We'll be looking at how to fill out a JSA form. Thank you for watching. If you liked the video, make sure to hit that like button and comment something down below. It really helps out. If you haven't already, please subscribe so you don't miss any future videos. In our next episode, we'll be looking at how to fill out a JSA form. Peace out.